In January of 1815, the War of 1812 was technically already over, at least on paper. The peace treaty had been signed in Europe, but the news hadn't crossed the Atlantic yet. What happened next would become one of the most decisive and improbable victories in American military history. And at the center of it stood a man who looked nothing like a polished general. He was gaunt, he was sickly, scarred, and relentlessly stubborn. His name? Andrew Jackson. And at New Orleans, he would become a national legend. Welcome to our republic.
When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands,
sailors and airmen of the Allied Expeditionary Force.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not
one small step for man. Those three hallowed words reverently dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
We pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
New Orleans wasn't just another city. It was the gateway to the Mississippi River, and whoever controlled it controlled the economic lifeline of the American interior. If Britain seized New Orleans, American trade from the Western territories would collapse. The Mississippi would fall under foreign control, and the United States could effectively be split in half. While British leadership understood this. But so did Andrew Jackson. When British forces moved into the Gulf of Mexico, let me start that over. When British forces moved into the Gulf of America in the late 1814, their objective was clear: take New Orleans, dictate peace terms from a position of strength, and humiliate the young republic one last time. Andrew Jackson was already known as a hard fighter. He had crushed the Creek Red Stick uprising earlier in the war and earned a reputation for absolute discipline. When he arrived at New Orleans, the situation was grim. The city was poorly defended, there was a political divide, and it was surrounded by swamps, bayous, and waterways. Jackson immediately declared martial law. Civil liberties were suspended, and anyone suspected of aiding the enemy was jailed. Critics were ignored. Jackson had one priority: defense. He began assembling a force from whatever he could find: regular U.S. Army troops, state militia from Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Mississippi, freed black soldiers from New Orleans, Choctaw warriors, local frontiersmen, and even pirates under Jean Lafitte. Let's do the speech thing here. Let's do this together. Even pirates under John Lafitte offered amnesty in exchange for their artillery skills. It was not a traditional army. It was an American one. The British forces were amongst the best in the world. They were veterans of the Napoleonic Wars, hardened by years of fighting in Europe against France, and they landed south of New Orleans and advanced through the swamps towards the city. Early skirmishes erupted along the narrow canals and muddy terrain. Jackson personally led a nighttime attack on British camps to disrupt their advances. Both sides now understood the shape of the upcoming battle. Jackson chose his ground very carefully. He positioned his army behind shallow canals, and one of them was known as Rodriguez's Canal, reinforced with earthworks, cotton bales, and artillery. The terrain favored defense. Swamps protected the flanks. Open fields forced the British to advance directly into fire, and American artillery had clear killing zones. Jackson drilled his men relentlessly. He emphasized marksmanship, discipline, and coordinated between infantry and artillery. Every man knew his role. And then on January 8th, 1815, at dawn, the British forces launched a full-scale assault. Columns advanced across open ground under heavy fog, straight into American cannon fire. The results were catastrophic for the British. Officers fell in waves. Units became disorganized. Repeated assaults collapsed under relentless fire. American riflemen picked off targets with deadly precision. Artillery tore gaps through advancing formations. Within minutes, the battlefield was covered with casualties. The British commander, General Edward Pakenham was mortally wounded. The leadership collapsed and tactics faltered, and by mid-morning, the battle was effectively over. The numbers told the story. British casualties, over 2,000 killed, wounded, or captured, and American casualties, fewer than 100. It was one of the most lopsided victories in American history. The British withdrew and New Orleans held. Only later did the news arrive that peace had already been signed in Europe and the battle had not been necessary, but it changed everything. The Battle of New Orleans cemented American confidence after years of uncertainty. It erased the humiliation of Washington being burned. It ended Britain's hope, right? British hopes of influencing peaceful terms from strength, and it elevated Andrew Jackson into national prominence. Jackson became a symbol of American resolve, aggressive, uncompromising, and fiercely independent. Within a generation, that reputation would carry him all the way to his presidency. Jackson was not universally loved, though. He ruled by force of will. He silenced critics and demanded obedience. But in the chaos of war, his style worked. He understood something critical. The defense of New Orleans required unity, not debate. Discipline mattered more than polish, and speed mattered more than comfort. His command at New Orleans was decisive, ruthless, and effective. The Battle of New Orleans was more than a military victory. It was a statement. It proved that the United States could stand alone, defend its territory, and defeat the most powerful army on earth through preparation, discipline, and resolve. Andrew Jackson did not fight that battle for glory. He fought it because the failure wasn't an option. And in doing so, he secured not just the city, but the confidence of a nation still learning how to survive in a dangerous world. And I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Remember, history isn't boring. It's the story of a hard-fought stand at the edge of a river that helped a young republic believe in itself once again. I'll see you next time.